Welcome to the Day After Saturday coverage. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jackson Juzang. Sadly, we don't have Krish Gupta with us here, but nonetheless, we do have the best-dressed gentleman on this campus today, the 17th president of Haverford College, soon to be, a man that honestly doesn't really need an introduction to the Haverford community, Mr. Ben Fligelman. Thank you for being with us here today.
No, thank you. The honor is truly all mine.
Hey, man, this is awesome. I'm so happy. I got to get the coolest guy on campus. And the Day After Saturday, man.
I'm very much obliged.
All right. So let's get right into it, man. So the best place to start is the beginning of your Haverford College journey. So what attracted you to Haverford College, and what stood out, and then you coming here?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I have a long answer and a short answer. I'll give the short answer first and then the long answer.
Okay.
The short answer is that when I was applying to colleges, Haverford was the only one that really treated me like I was an adult.
Right.
And that meant a lot to me. I wanted to be respected. I didn't want to be infantilized. And so I very much liked that.
Right.
The slightly longer reason was, at the time, I was reading a book called Albion's Seed. I was reading about the Quakers. I'm like, oh, the Quakers are great.
Yeah.
I had a suspicion that college with a Quaker teaching style would be more likely to encourage discussion than one with a more Puritan or Calvinist teaching style. The professor is less likely to take on the aspect of the Cotton Mather preacher from the pulpit.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to come somewhere where individual student voices and the inner light, as the Quakers would call it,
right,
is valued.
Yeah, I honestly completely agree. I think Haverford, like individually for students, has been, and I mean, at least for me personally, has also been a great experience. Like, I'm able to be myself. You're able to be your amazing self as well. So that's awesome. And I feel like I'm sure the moment you stepped on Haverford, other people were attracted energy-wise to your aura, to your persona. And obviously, man, a big part of you, and this is the reason I'm wearing a suit today, I wanted to try to, be up to your standards dress-wise.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, how did these suits start, man? Where's the inspiration for the suits, the hat? I mean, you do this every day, and everyone knows that, obviously, but I'm sure a lot of people on this campus are curious why you dress the way you do and dress so nice.
Well, it's a great question, and so I will now disclose the truth. I did not dress like this before coming to Haverford. I know, a shock. So,
what?
Here's what happened. I came to Haverford, and...
Wait, the first weekend, were you, in normal clothes and everything?
Absolutely.
Oh, my God.
I was wearing normal clothes all of September 2022.
Wow, okay. Keep going.
But then, September 2022, I go thrifting with some friends,
Mm-hmm.
and I acquire this lovely black overcoat. It's flowy, it's heavy, it's perfect for the seasons. But here's the thing. You can't just wear a black overcoat.
Of course not.
An overcoat needs a sport coat needs a tie, and, well, all needs a hat to tie it together.
Okay, yeah.
And so...
So from there it was...
Exactly. Basically, by the beginning of winter break, my freshman year, I was dressing like this.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is incredible. And there's nothing else to the story. You just were it's so attractive to the suits and everything like that.
Well, there is a little bit more. So,
okay.
Ralph Lauren, kind of the clothing magnate, he says
yes.
He's not selling clothing, he's selling an idea. He's selling a vision for the kind of person you want to be. And I see it the same way. Dressing like this is like getting another part of myself into alignment. If there's a person that I want to be, it's like getting different images on a stereoscope lined up. So one of those things is being locked in academically. One of those things is having good social relationships. And another one of those things is having the inner reflect the outer. As some might say, the kingdom above reflects the kingdom below.
Yes. Man, you're dope, man. That's awesome. That is awesome. And, man, for me personally, I've been so invested in these, Miami Vice suits recently, man, and that's what I've been going for. I just got a couple pinstripe suits recently, so I'm excited to bring those to Haverford, man.
I would love to see that.
All right, yep, you're going to see them. It's going to be great. Man, that's awesome. So, and, I just found out yesterday talking to a friend, I was talking to someone about how we're going to do this interview, and they're like, no way, the Ben Fligelman. And, I just asked you recently about this annual hat change ceremony, and there was, 150 people or so come to this a year, and you've been doing it. This was the second year you did it.
Yeah.
So I'm curious first, do you wear one hat a year? And I mean, like, how did you start? Like, who told you to start doing this, or did you were like, you know what? I'm just gonna start doing a ceremony for my hats.
Well, if I was going to be presumptuous, I would say that God told me, but that's not
Oh,
true.
okay, okay.
That's not true.
No, Ralph Lauren and
No,
God, yeah.
So I'll first answer your question about the hats.
Okay.
So I wear one hat for the spring and summer,
Okay.
which is the straw Panama hat,
Okay.
and then I wear one hat for the fall and winter, which is a tweed Stetson.
Okay.
Which I got on my 16th birthday and has been kind of a dear acquaintance with my head ever since.
That's amazing.
Indeed. As for the story of the hat changing ceremony, I've actually been trying to think about it more and more lately because I want to understand how it fits into my life, how it fits into Haverford College as a whole. And I think the term that I've been coming to is mediated intimacy. Because on one hand, I think that there's something very, very special about being like one with the crowd, being able to talk to a lot of people at once. Robert Penn Warren talks about this in All the King's Men. He says Willie Stark, who's sort of the large figure of the book, he has a symbiotic relationship with the crowd. And in many ways, I feel like there can be hopefully something similar. The problem, of course, is that Willie Stark is a terrible person. So what I'm trying to do is to get that sort of symbiotic relationship, but to mediate it with symbol and with spectacle and with liturgy. I think about it the same way that one thinks about the sacraments. So if my numerous religious references haven't made it clear, I'm a religion major. And so I think of a lot of things through religious context. As a result, the hat-changing ceremony is kind of a classic example of this. On one hand, you have the central activity, the central mystery, the moments when the hats change, but that mystery is mediated through all the poems, through the crowd, through the excitement, through the preparation. And so I think it's a way where I can become closer with all the people I know, where everyone can become closer with one another, but where that closeness is mediated by ceremony so it doesn't become stifling.
I appreciate your philosophical mindset towards all of this, and it's nice to know that you're a religion major. And wow, yeah, I'm kind of speechless, man. That's pretty crazy. I mean, it's like he's transcending the community through this hat change, man. I mean, it's just it's mind blowing. I'm kind of speechless, man. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
It's an honor.
No, that's awesome, man. Do you have a favorite combination of, you know, your suits and, like you said, you have this hat now for the fall and the winter. Like, do you have a favorite combination for, and especially a tie too? It's a nice tie you got on.
Well, I must say, this is my favorite tie.
Oh, okay.
But
Well,
yeah.
great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for wearing it today.
Truly, I could do nothing else.
All right.
This is, I call it my snake tie. Looks sort of like a snake.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Otherwise, though, I think I wore kind of a lot of my faves today. I wore favorite tie.
Okay, great.
Favorite jacket. This is
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
kind of
I'm
a
so
classic
happy.
tweed with the elbow patches. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Now,
Yeah.
what were you saying?
No, and then I was just gonna say sort of a pair of slightly more relaxed fit pants.
No, good, man. Yeah, relax. It's calm and cool, man. So, obviously, you're the best dressed kid on this campus. Now, who would you say is the second best dressed kid on this campus? Don't say me either.
Oh.
Even though I'm wearing this today, I usually dress like I'm in pajamas most days.
That's a good question. Well, actually, do you know Jiao Gu? She's a senior.
I do not,
Oh.
but we'll make sure, you know, she gets her recognition here whenever we post this episode. So
She actually.
she's got it going on.
She may be even better dressed than me. She's very well
Hot
dressed.
take. It's a
And
hot take.
It's a distinct possibility.
All right. Now we're going to transition to something that I feel like a lot of people want to know is take me through a day in the life of Ben Fligelman from start to finish. Like, what does your day look like on just an average day?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So I'll give you guys Monday. So Mondays, first class, 10 a.m. I will wake up at 9:40. Realize.
You cut it close.
I am a late riser. Jeff.
Late
I'm a
riser.
late riser.
Okay.
So I'll get up at 9:40. It takes me exactly 20 minutes to get ready.
Okay.
And so I'll go from Lloyd to Lutnick, sort of speed of lightning.
Yes, you are a speed of lightning. I saw it in American politics last year.
Oh, Yeah, zipping into that class.
Okay.
My gosh. So after that, I'll probably talk to Paul Turner, the religion librarian. Great guy, very fun. Afterwards, lunch, victuals, a little bit of discourse. Truly, what would life be without it? Then.
What's your discourse involve? Like, what are you doing?
That.
What's your free time?
What's my free time?
Yep.
Well, we'll get to that in a little bit. We'll
Okay.
get to that when the evening comes.
Okay,
But
okay.
It's a lot of pondering the divine, a lot of discussion of politics. I'm a big theory fan.
Awesome. We're going to talk a little bit about politics a little later.
Oh,
So
illustrious.
Great.
But anyways, so the day progresses. Another class, do some work, dinner. But the real highlight of the Ben Fligelman day, and sort of folks watching at home might know this, is that from about, depending on the night, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., I take my evening constitutional.
10 p.m. to 4 a.m.?
I have a lot of thinking to do. So I walk around campus and I think and I think and I think.
Now, where are you going at, say, 2 a.m., 3 a.m.?
Well, there's a lot of good places to go. I mean, there's the tunnels, of course.
The tunnels.
But
Okay.
the tunnels really are more for special occasions. I think
Right.
there's a lot of other nice places. I mean, I'm a particular fan of the Whitehead balcony looking out over the GIAC. I also love the guest center. I spend a lot of time in the guest center, just right off Founders. It's beautiful.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Of course, the occasional walk to Wawa, but, been trying to cut down for the bank account.
Yeah, I get that. What's your Wawa order?
Oh, my go-to? Well, so it used to be hot food, but these days it's the salt and vinegar kettle chips.
Salt and vinegar kettle chips. Now, you don't get any hot food anymore. You just get the snack.
Yeah, no more hot food. No more hot food.
Any drink?
Well, if needs must be, a coconut Red Bull.
Coconut Red Bull.
My
Okay, there you
favorite.
have it. That is amazing. I love this so much.
I'm glad you're having such a good time, boss.
Yeah, man. So now, what was the religion guy's name again? The professor?
Oh, he's the religion librarian.
Religion librarian.
Paul Turner.
Paul Turner.
He's great.
Okay, would you say he's your favorite staff member on the campus, or who would you say your favorite professor is?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think, yeah, my favorite professor is probably Professor McGuire in the religion department, or Professor Farnath, two goats of the religion department.
Shout out Professor McGuire, Professor McGarnath.
No, Professor Farnath.
Farnath, excuse
Yeah.
me. Oh my
And then
goodness.
also GT in the religion department. He's a real legend. He's great. I'm hoping to do an independent study with him in the spring.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of also answered my favorite extracurricular activity. It's kind of to go 10 p.m. to 4 a.m.
Evening constitutional.
Evening Constitution. That's
Though
incredible.
I must say, I do love mock trial too.
Mock trial, and you got that later, so that's awesome. You got
Oh,
a
yeah.
great Friday.
I know, it's gonna be
TGIF.
beautiful Friday.
Yes. Now, next question. What is your best Haverford experience to date and worst Haverford experience to date?
Oh, well, in many ways, Jackson, they're one and the same.
Wow, look at that.
So when I was a
Philosophical Ben. Keep going.
like last year, I was the opposite of locked in. I was locked out. I was tweaking.
Locked out.
Some might even say
Tweaking.
tweaking. Yeah, I was having a flop semester. So it comes to finals, which, as we all know, in December is a ridiculous sort of 4.5 days.
Yes. Yep.
So it's maybe Saturday at about 8 p.m. and I realize I have all the work I haven't done over the semester and 4 essays to write
On the last day?
on the last 5 days.
Okay. I was about to say, whew, man.
Over the course of those days, I lived in Lutnick Library. I brought my toothbrush there. I brought my deodorant there.
Did you sleep?
Slept on the floor of one of the study rooms.
Oh my goodness.
It was a harrowing experience.
Yeah, but you can find the good in that. Like you
Oh.
said, it's one and the same.
Well, this is what's so amazing about it, because I came out of that cleansed, expurgated. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I really think there has yet to be a more formative moment in my life than sort of passing through the crucible that was that week. And in so doing, I think it's allowed me to grow and change and find a great
Yeah.
deal of joy.
That's true fulfillment right there. I mean, then when you're done with that, you feel like you're the on top of the world, though. I mean, that's
was-
incredible. 4 essays and a chunk of work
It was
over
amazing.
5 days.
It was spectacular.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And that's awesome that they're all, again, one and the same. Now, I'm curious if there is not an experience, but now like the quality of Haverford that you would change, off a rip. Like, what's one thing about Haverford that you would change? And this doesn't speak to you being president yet. We're gonna talk about that soon.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So what I would change.
And it doesn't have to be too big. It can be maybe something socially. It could be something in extracurriculars. Then we'll get into you being your president.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the simplest one is I want the blue bus to run more.
The blue bus to run more.
Yeah,
okay, that's a great one.
Yeah, I'm a big walker back and forth.
Yeah.
Late at night, I think blue bus should run a little bit more.
Okay.
But I mean, if we're gonna talk more about sort of programmatic changes to Haverford, I can address that too.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. So, obviously, in your bio of your Instagram, the first thing I noticed is that you're going to be the 17th president of Haverford College. Now, first off, what's your motivation for being the president of Haverford College, and how do you plan on becoming the president of Haverford College? And we'll get into what you will do after that, but answer those two first.
Well, firstly, I have to acknowledge that it's a little bit of a jest. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to end up.
I don't know, man.
as the
I
president.
think you're going to do it.
Oh,
I think you're going to do it.
I appreciate the vast amounts of faith that you have in me, but I'll say this. So I've always been very fond of sort of small local institutions. When I was growing up in my tiny little town in Connecticut, I had my sort of youthful dreams of becoming the mayor, and I think in many ways, sort of upon coming to college, those dreams have been transplanted into the collegiate sphere. So that's the first possibility. The second thing I would note is that to become a college president today is very different than it was like 40, 50 years ago.
Right.
40, 50 years ago, there's sort of crisis in higher education. You have people like Leon Botstein becoming president at like 25 without a PhD. That's not the case anymore. You need to be a respected academic, and then you become a president.
Right.
The way it works in academia is you can sort of choose 2 of the 3 things in the academic trinity. You can either be a good teacher, a good pedagogue, you could do good research, or you could do good administrative work. And the question for sort of any would-be budding academic intellectual is if they're going to, or which of the 3 they're going to choose, which
Right.
2. And so ultimately, if I was to sort of commit my life to becoming a college president, it would have to be through pedagogy and through sort of work within the institution.
Right.
But I would note one thing, and this is, I think, sort of the most important thing. And in many ways, I'm kind of burying the lead by putting this last. But it's that to become a college president, to become an academic, to become sort of a PhD candidate and eventually recipient, the primary requirement isn't ambition, it isn't intelligence, it's nothing like that. It's pure devotion. So the real question that I have to ask myself, and is kind of a fundamental question, is if I have the devotion required to commit myself to that sort of ascetic existence.
Right. Well, I think you seem like a very committed person to your schedule, and you sound like you have a pretty good routine down. I think balance and, like you said, assertiveness and, motivation are the biggest things for being a president of an institution, along obviously with the resume for it. So I think you got it, man. Now, what are the biggest changes you would make to Haverford if given the opportunity to be the president of Haverford College?
Oh, that is a dangerous question to ask.
It's a dangerous question, but a question I should ask you.
No, indeed.
And I have
indeed.
to ask.
Yeah. So I think the first change that I would make is I would shift the way that we allocate money. I think that Haverford spends a lot of money on things that it doesn't necessarily need to spend it on, and I think as a result, Haverford neglects things that they shouldn't. A
Right.
great example of this is the Haverford 2030 plan. In its first iteration, I was having a conversation with the professor, and he said, in the first iteration of the plan, if you were to switch out the words college with the words bowling alley, you wouldn't get that much of a difference.
Right.
And I think that indicates what's something of a pernicious trend in higher academia, which is that an undergrad institution becomes in many ways like a 4-year resort for 18 to 22-year-olds,
Right.
which is a huge mistake. Now, obviously, Haverford has not slipped to that low. I still think we have a sincere academic institution. I mean,
Yeah,
I know.
I think in terms of the image and obviously the quality of these professors, I think it hasn't gotten I don't think it's gotten that bad.
Oh no, not at all,
For
not at
sure,
all.
yeah.
I think that Haverford is an institution that this is throughout its entire coming up on 200-year
Right.
history has been a very good college.
Yes.
But for some reason or another, it has, at every chance to become a great institution, shied away. And there's a variety of reasons for this: a lack of money, a lack
Yeah.
of vision, a lack of
Like
capability.
I think our endowment, obviously out of the TriCo, is by far the lowest.
Yes.
Specifically because of the 2008 financial crisis and the handling of that. But
Yes, indeed. And I think actually talking about the endowment is important. Another Ben Fligelman fact is that I'm the representative to the board of managers.
oh wow,
So
okay.
I go to their meetings, I sit in. Sometimes they let me talk.
Oh, nice.
And so what I've noticed is that they are definitely very concerned about the future of the endowment.
Right.
And I mean, Haverford is a very unusual business model. 75% of our money comes from tuition, 25% comes from the endowment and from charitable donations.
Mm-hmm.
And the question that Haverford has to answer in the coming years is A, is Haverford going to find some way to dramatically increase its endowment? And if it isn't, how is it going to be able to compete with peer institutions if its endowment is small?
That's a great point. Any other big resolutions you'd make?
Yes. So,
Maybe name like 2 or 3 more.
okay, absolutely. Well,
Okay.
Can I just give you one really long one?
Yeah, one really long one. That's
Okay,
better. Yeah, that's better.
absolutely. Yeah. So, the thing about Haverford is that there's a quotation that's bandied about quite a lot. You'll see it in the founder's study room, you'll see it in the Bryn Mawr room in the DC. It's the quotation from Isaac Sharpless's address to the class of 1888. He says, to quote loosely, "I suggest you preach truth and do righteousness as you have been taught, for your consciousnesses and judgments we have not sought to bind." All of this, he says, to say that there should be no petty ambitions, no social circle, no political party should lead you to sacrifice any ounce of your moral freedom.
Right.
And that is what Haverford has aspired to for the past, I would say, sort of 100 years. And while I think that's a good thing to aspire to, I think it's aiming the mark incorrectly, because I don't think it responds to what Haverford's comparative advantage is. Haverford's comparative advantage is best described in a different quotation from one of Sharpless's contemporaries, Christopher Morley, from the class of 1910. He is the Morley alcove in Latvic.
Okay.
He said the following: "The success of a small college is not whether it produces great men, for this it will rarely do. Rather, does it implant in mediocre men, such as most of us are, a capsule of liberal dreams, a tenderness for problems of the spirit and the conscience, and an eagerness to contradict the cruel lies and stupidities of one's age. This, I think, Haverford does. And I believe that the best thing Haverford could do for its future would be to center itself around that quotation, because I think that is a clear image for what the college can be, should be, and, God willing, will be."
Man, I envy your public speaking ability, man. That is amazing. Yeah, you never miss a beat. That's incredible. Have you, this is off topic, but have you practiced like this, this level of speech before? Maybe to
did-
yourself or?
I mean, I did debate in high school.
Yeah.
I have a kind of a tendency to memorize quotations.
Yeah, that's
So
incredible. Yeah.
I was able to whip that with the board of managers. It was pretty fun.
No, that's great. Yeah, I can memorize dates. I feel like the way you memorize quotes.
Oh,
So
that's great.
Yeah, it's incredible. But I still, again, I'm envy of your public speaking. That's incredible, man.
Do you have any great dates that you sort of...
Well, I mean, April 4th, 1968 is a very popular one. I'd say,
What happened on April 4th, 1968?
well, MLK died.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
God.
that's an easy one though. I mean, I feel like I'm a big civil rights guy, and December 4th, 1968 or 69 is when my favorite African American Black Panther died. Fred Hampton. He was shot and killed through a planned assassination of the FBI.
Yeah. Yes.
because he was perceived obviously as a threat. So, but anyhow, that's important. Well, unimportant for this interview at least. So obviously, sadly, you're not the 17th president, man. This is really cool. But the 16th president is Wendy Raymond,
Yeah.
and I'm curious, how you think she's done overall as president of the college. And you can decline comment if you like. I know it's probably it's a heavy subject, and it's something that you don't want to put yourself in a bad situation. But I'm curious, about your opinion, and I think it's important considering the fact that you know so much about the school and about the dreams that the school should be having, and how we should be looking at the school and things along those lines, and how we should get out of the school. I think that 1910 quote was excellent.
Thank you.
You know,
Yeah, I think Wendy has worked very hard as the president of Haverford College, and I think she's very committed to the institution.
mm-hmm.
I think that she and I probably disagree on where we see the institution going,
Okay.
and that's not necessarily something that's wrong with her. I mean,
Of course.
there's room for disagreement in an institution.
Of course.
I think that there could definitely be a president better than Wendy, but I also think that there could be a lot of presidents who are worse.
Right.
So ultimately, while I think there's certainly room for improvement in Wendy's tenure, I don't think that she's the devil incarnate.
Right. So in short,
She's been an okay president. And I mean, this comes back to what I said. Haverford has, for much of its history, had a string of good but generally undistinguished presidents, with a couple of exceptions. I think Isaac Sharpless and acting president Steve Carey in the 70s are the two big exceptions.
right.
But beyond that, I think Wendy continues in the proud, or perhaps not so proud, tradition of being a just okay president.
Okay. Well, I have Professor Benston for my
Oh,
class. What did you think of him as a president?
so I also have Professor Benson as a class. I am a huge Kim Benston fan.
All right. That's great.
What I would say is that, from what I can tell, he seems that he was a very fair president. I don't think his tenure was really long enough.
Yeah, it was only 4 years.
Yeah, only 4 years. Wasn't really long enough for us to get a vision. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, did he really enjoy being president?
I'm not sure. Maybe that's why he was out after 4 years. I'm actually not sure why he left still to this day. I haven't asked him yet, but I think I should.
Yeah, I've always had the suspicion that he much prefers teaching to running a college. I mean, he's an exceptional pedagogue. He's an amazing teacher.
Yeah, he's an amazing English professor, and he's actually my junior seminar professor and junior seminar tutorial professor. He's excellent, man. He's very intelligent, and I think, honestly, it's so funny. Like, I know his intelligence in classes, and if he listens to this, he'll understand that his intelligence is extremely intimidating. And not to me, but I know to other students who have talked about it in discussions and things like that. But nonetheless, he's very smart, very highly touted with, from my perspective in English literature. But I'm sure as a president, he was probably just as respected and appreciated and things along those lines. Yeah.
One thing I would say about Kim Benston, and this is one thing I do know about him for sure, and this is, if you're watching Professor Benston, this is a compliment for you. And if you're watching for the rest of the public, this is a true fact about Kim Benston, is that I've heard, really, anyone I've asked about his presidency has said that he's a profoundly kind man.
Yes, very respectable.
I think is a very good trait.
Yeah.
And I think that alone is deeply commendable.
I agree with that completely. He's one of the most respectful guys I think I've met as a professor, and he's also very motivational. Like, there's a lot of students here who are pretty self-conscious about what they're, their learning process and courses and things along those lines. And like I said, he's very intimidating sometimes, so people are not as receptive and responsive to his teaching ability, because they're like, oh my gosh, like, he just spewed off a bunch of stuff, and now I don't know what I'm thinking is right or not. But he helps will you to think how he's thinking, essentially. So, yeah, he's great.
He guides you. It's almost like...
Yeah, exactly.
He gets to your idea before you get there.
Exactly, yeah. And he also knows, he knows your path, too. It's like he's a very personable professor as well, so he gets to know you and, all that stuff. We could make this the Professor Benston podcast immediately.
So true.
Yeah.
Benston app.
Now, moving on to... we're going back to your persona and, who you are as a person in the suits and things like that. But, man, What I also knew about you, man, and something I've always noticed is you're a big ladies guy. I mean,
I
there's a lot of ladies who love hanging around you, man.
okay. I
This is
have to
true.
I have to reject this spurious allegation. I
Nope.
am not a ladies' man.
Well, I think you hanging out with a lot of them says otherwise. But anyway, I'm curious, man, if you would have advice to young men, women, or whatever sexuality or gender you decide to be, what advice would you have to someone who wants to flirt or anything like that? I mean, I think I think you're being modest right now, but I won't.
Oh well.
I won't say anything.
Okay.
I won't say
Okay.
anything
Well,
else.
I'll, I'll just say this
Don't
from
say be yourself.
oh
Don't say it.
oh no. It's
'Cause
not a question of being yourself.
okay, good.
Well, and this comes back to the whole question of the suits.
Right.
It's not about being yourself. It's about being the person that you want to be. There's actually, if I may take out my phone for a
Go
second
ahead.
quotation,
Go ahead.
there's a spectacular quotation from Robert Penn Warren where he talks about love. And he says, when you get in love, you're made all over again. Let's see. Let's see if I can find it in here.
If you can, that would be amazing.
Yes. For when you get in love, you are made all over again. The person who loves you has picked you out from the great mass of uncreated clay which is humanity, to make something out of. And the poor lumpish clay which is you wants to find out what it has been made into. But at the same time, you, in the act of loving somebody, become real. Cease to be part of the continuum of the uncreated clay and get the breath of life in you, and rise up. So you create yourself by creating another person, who, however, has also created you, picked up the you chunk of clay out of the mass. So there are two yous, the one you create by loving, and the one the beloved creates by loving you. The farther those two yous are apart, the more the world grinds and grudges on its axis. But if you were love, and loved perfectly, then there wouldn't be any difference between the two yous or any distance between them. They would coincide perfectly. There would be a perfect focus, as when a stereoscope gets the twin images of the card into perfect alignment.
So that's what you feel like drives your purpose for love.
Yeah, so I think there's something important there in creating yourself and creating the other person.
Right.
Every day, when I dress like this, when I talk like this, when I interact like this, it's about enacting the kind of person that I want to be and the kind of person that I want to become. When you're in love, you're doing that with yourself and another person. Love, and I strongly recommend everyone read Gillian Rose's book, Love's Work. I think it's a spectacular book. But love is something that is forever without ground. You always have to make yourself anew every single day, and that's why it's so scary and so spectacular and so awful. There's a word that we don't have in English, but it's in Russian. It's grozny. It's what we translate Ivan the Terrible from. But it doesn't just mean terrible. It means great and terrible.
Right.
And that's what love is. It's a great and terrible thing. And so when you love someone, you make yourself all over again, and you make them, and they make you, and they make themselves. And my hope is that for any of you listening at home who are looking for love, that you can understand that, and you can enter love with the same solemnity that is required. However, I must offer a certain tonic to this, which is that love isn't all doom and gloom and remaking oneself all over again. As a favorite piece of media of mine, it's The Beggar's Opera from 18th century London. Youth's the season made for joys, love is then our duty. Let's be gay while we may, beauty's a flower despised in decay. Youth's the season made for joys.
I'm just getting lost in your quotes, man. I mean, how many books have you read in your life?
Oh.
I'm curious to that too. I'm thinking of these questions on the fly now, but
that is a great question.
Is it countless? I mean,
well, it's funny you should say that for two reasons. Just this morning, I texted my friend. I said, I should count up all the books I've read in my whole life.
Oh God,
and I
that
was
would
gonna
take
do
10 years.
and then I didn't.
Okay.
However, if we're gonna talk about just the books that mean a lot to me, I'd say there's sort of a good 10 that are like deeply important to me. I mean, everywhere I go, I always carry my Great Gatsby with me.
Wow, you have Great Gatsby in a small book. It's a mini
Yes.
book.
Yes,
Oh my
indeed.
goodness. I didn't know what do you think of the movie?
Which one?
The Leonardo one.
Oh, I think it's washed up. I think
Washed
it's
up.
washed
That makes
up.
sense. I understand that.
No,
I
the
understand
one with
that.
Robert Redford is infinitely better.
Right. I get that. What year did that come out?
1973
73.
or 77.
Okay, yeah.
It's an odd numbered year in the 70s.
Okay, gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
All the suiting done by Ralph Lauren.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great fact to know. I'm a big movie guy. That's really cool to know. I love movie facts too.
Awesome.
Well, great, man. I think, just to wrap this up, I have a couple more questions, but I think a lot of people, and I think the viewers are obviously most curious, and we have had the pleasure of getting this insight about you as a person, philosophically, morally, your values. But I'm curious if there's one other thing you'd point to that is insightful about you that maybe people wouldn't know about you at first glance.
That's a great question. And this is something that maybe it is something people understand at first glance, maybe it isn't. But I do think it gets to the kernel of my character. So after I say this, the audience will have no more questions about me.
Okay.
One could hope.
One could
And
hope.
it's that ultimately, when all is said and done, I'm a person with an infinite capacity for hope. And as a result, I think that informs the kind of person I try to be, the kind of things that I believe, and the kind of world that I'm trying to live in.
That's incredible. I mean, just the whole hope aspect, man. I mean, that's all anybody could hope for, man. No pun intended. But yeah, man. I mean, I'm kind of speechless. This was an amazing interview. Oh, Krish had 2 questions. He wanted me to ask. First of all, who are you going to be voting for this election?
Oh, Kamala Harris all the way.
Okay, that's great.
They say vote early, vote often.
Do you vote early?
Not yet.
Are you gonna vote? Are you gonna vote in person on the 5th? Okay, me too.
I'm gonna vote in person on
Me
the
too.
5th, yeah.
Good stuff. Good
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna go with a friend after the Hegel seminar.
Oh, well, that's great. All right,
Yeah.
awesome. And favorite DC meal?
Oh, favorite DC meal? Oh, that's a great question. I gotta say, Tastes of India is unbeat.
Tastes of India.
I
Okay.
really, really like it.
All right, that's the Ben Fligelman special now. It's no longer called Tastes of India.
Oh, thank you.
All right, well, man, Ben, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you for being on the show, and it's been a pleasure, man.
It was a delight, an honor, and a joy to be invited.
It's been a great time just getting to know the most interesting man on campus. Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you guys. Peace for more coverage. We'll see you guys later.
Toodaloo.